Significantly shorter than everybody else. So that's a background of me. I'm a director at BizData. What I wanted to talk about today is really a topic that was prompted from some sessions that were presented last year. We saw some sessions. We actually presented on a different topic around data quality last year, but we actually went to some interesting sessions where we saw some extremes of presentations from a researcher's perspective on, the need to collect more data and dealing with some of those challenges, and then some quite controversial topics, some of controversial sessions. I forget the fellow's name, but he was quite assertive in some of his ideas about we've got enough data as a practitioner, we really need to just focus on using what we've got. So what I thought I'd do is not necessarily provide something conclusive today, but perhaps start a conversation that we can continue over the next 2 days, especially since looks like we're out of time, so I won't keep you too long from lunch. Do I just use the clicker? Oh, no. There you go. Did I just flick through? Okay, I didn't follow you. Okay. All right, beautiful. All right, so the subject of the topic today is how much data is enough, and trying to potentially use other techniques to negotiate between those two stakeholder groups that I referred to. BizData, you've already got a little bit of an overview. We're quite passionate about clients using the technology they have to enable everyone in an organisation to benefit from analytics. So not just a few highly skilled analysts, but whether it's the practitioner or line managers, everyone should benefit in some way from analytics. That doesn't mean that they will do hours and hours of analysis, but they should be a receiver of that insight. I think Edgebox might share a similar kind of approach. And the technology's there. Most companies will own platforms to start to get some of that value out. I noticed Edgebox actually had the pivot viewer. That's a great little interactive tool. I'm not sure if you're able to demo it today, but if you're able to get them to demo it, it's actually quite intuitive for even a simple user to understand data really quickly. All right, anyway, enough about getting excited about tools. What I wanted to talk about today is actually talk about a case study from one of our partners in the US, a company called Predixion. So Predixion are about a 2-year-old company. They have built a predictive analytics workbench that really changes the game, I think, for lots of organisations and certainly for health. Really, their ethos is similar to ours in terms of making predictive analytics accessible to everyone. So SAS and SPSS are nice, but cost is a huge barrier for a lot of organisations, whereas in reality, you have data mining functionality in your database platforms today that you probably don't realise are there. So Predixion is very straightforward in their proposition, which is making it very easy for practitioners to benefit from predictive insight, potentially through Excel or SharePoint if you're using SharePoint Portal, but through the technologies you already have. I can demo some of the technologies over the next 2 days if you like. But what I found was interesting about Predixion is a particular project they were working on where they went through a particular analytical process to help the client work out how many data elements they needed to build a particular model. And that's really what I wanted to talk about today. Not that you'll necessarily follow that same process, but that principle you may apply to different problems you have where you're trying to work out how much data is enough. So, some pretty pictures. We've got the two polar extremes of the researcher and practitioner, and I think I'm starting off by depicting the happy states for both of those stakeholders. having had a year to reflect on some of the ideas that were presented, I thought that there must be some more clever interfaces between those two stakeholder groups, and if there's different ways that they can engage to agree on the right level of data to collect, then we're moving forward. Maybe slowly, but we are moving forward. So unfortunately, this is where the stakeholders tend to sit at the moment. So practitioners are very frustrated with the administrative burden of collecting data, and any additional data element seems to cause a lot of contention. I don't have time for that. Patients will suffer, people will die, it will be terrible. And researchers, on the other hand, really are looking for more data points to actually help practitioners, treat better or give them a better basis of their decisions. So I'm oversimplifying, I realise, but I want to move through quickly. So I guess the thing I wanted to put to these stakeholders is, what if you could use history, and in this case the practitioner, what if you could use history to lower the risks in the future? But not just by giving you a historical chart or report, but actually making that clearly actionable. And I'll come to that later in the presentation. And what if you could prioritise which data throughout the life cycle of a patient's stay? So in the case study I'll talk about today, we're talking about a stay in a hospital. What if we could prioritise what are the most important elements that will make a difference to us predicting a particular outcome? And hopefully the answer to all of those is, well, tell me more. So where I'm leading with this is, I've worked in business intelligence for 14 years or so, and I see a lot of organisations get, preoccupied with building charts and graphs of what's happened in the past, and not focus enough on arming people at the front line of their organisation, who are dealing with customers or patients, with helping them narrow the odds of what might happen in the future. And I think that's really important. And I think if we can start to arm, in this case, practitioners with more of these tools based on historical data, but at the point that they're making a decision, then we'll be able to move forward a little bit faster. So I'm not sure if everyone in the room is familiar with predictive analytics, but synonymous with data mining. I'm talking about a discipline that is really an intersection of artificial intelligence and statistics. And we can talk about it more later on if you want to know more. But I assume a lot of you are already familiar with that discipline. So, as the name suggests, from predictive analytics, we're using data to determine a likely outcome in the future, rather than having to make a decision after the fact. So let's talk about prediction. So prediction has really been prompted in the US by legislation, and it's come from the US government around fixing their health system, or trying to address some of the problems in their health system. And one area that they're focused in on is patient readmissions, where hospitals in the US have had no kind of disincentive to discharge patients early and then readmit them. They actually make more money out of the process, and if you look at some of the charts of what US healthcare will cost in about 5 years, they're completely freaked out. So they need to start to address some of those costs right away. So if they haven't already enacted some of the legislation, it's coming in shortly, which will penalise hospitals for unnecessary readmissions. So both payers and health providers are very interested in curbing that problem. I believe the UK has also some measures to come in place shortly. I'm not too familiar with it, but this is obviously an international focus. I believe also that Australian legislation under the ABF framework has some readmissions elements to that as well. So definitely relevant for us here. So what we're talking about when we put predictive analytics into action is we're taking historical data, so clinical variables, factors about the patient, things about their stay in the hospital. We're creating a study group, and we're splitting that in two. So we're creating a test set for training the model, and a training set for training the model, and a test set that we're going to actually use as to benchmark the accuracy of the model. Now what we want to do is build that model so that in real time, when new data is presented on a single patient, we can get a predictive score straight away. That's really the intention of what this slide is trying to depict. If you want to know more, we can talk about it later. So that's all nice, but the first principle we need to really get across, the first hurdle we need to get across is proving that the model is actually going to help and is actually reliable. So, typically with predictive models, you'll produce a gains chart. So if you look at that linear line in the middle of the chart there, I'm not sure if you can make out that it's blue. Yep, you can. So that's kind of the depiction of doing nothing, right? And those curves show the additional benefit of identifying a readmission early, or the ability to identify a potential readmission earlier. Now, that's suited for some scenarios, but there's actually a standard in health called a C statistic. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that. It's a way of benchmarking models. And the idea of I don't want to get too heavy on statistics now, but the idea is that it's more sensitive to picking up adverse events rather than looking at the upside. I'll just leave it at that. I realise this is the fourth presentation. Don't want to get too heavy on it. So now, the particular case study that I think is interesting is that Predixion have built a readmissions model, and it can accept 87, or they anticipate 87 inputs. Now, not every health operator is in a position to either source from existing systems or collect those additional 87 inputs. So they were posed the question, which are the most important? Like, if we had to cut it down to 15, like what is going to have the most material impact on us being able to accurately forecast a readmission? So I just thought that was a really good thing to be able to do. So what they produced on the right-hand side there is a prioritization of the different data elements. And there's some statistics to back that up. But, they could cut it down to, I think there's a list of 15 there. So straight away, we can depict the incremental value of those extra elements. And the next slide kind of highlights this a lot more clearly, that you can see, and you have three colours for the different stages of a patient's stay. So you have at the point of admission in blue, then an inpatient, and then at discharge, and the incremental benefit of collecting or having those data elements at that point in the patient's life cycle. So very easy to do. It's an interface just through Excel. Essentially, they just ran each of the input variables through a model, prioritized them, and then built some other models around that. But very simple techniques to kind of answer a question that I haven't really seen answered in this way before. So that's all nice, but at the end of all of that, we need to make it actionable. So it's nice to have charts that depict, the gains and the lift, or the receiver operating characteristics, and, understand whether that's statistically significant or not. But, a practitioner dealing with a patient really wants to understand this particular patient I'm talking to, what is the sensitivity of particular characteristics that might increase the chance of them being readmitted. And so what Predixion makes very easy is the ability to do that scenario analysis, enter different characteristics, and get that result straight away, because we have that trained model there. So hopefully, I've got 5 minutes. So hopefully that was of interest to you. If it wasn't, I'll leave you with the invitation to leave your card at our stand, and you can win a Connect, which might be more interesting to you. So in summary, what I wanted to get across is in these conversations between these two stakeholder groups, focus on data that's actionable. So focus on an outcome like readmissions and work backwards from there. Make the insight that you're collecting data for consumable by the people that are collecting it. We found the same approach to data quality. So data quality post hoc, using lots of probabilistic matching, is a nightmare to develop a rule set for. But if you push that to the front end, where in the case we talked about last year, we had a client that had a huge disparity between the activity they were actually doing and what the funding submission report purported they were doing. And that was because of little 1%ers in the patient management system that, lo and behold, wasn't built to meet legislation. It was built to, do patient management. So we built a very simple report that in real time shows operators in the system what the little 1%ers are they need to fill in to complete a record. And by doing that, they save a lot of work later on. So, for this particular organisation, it equated to 20% increase in funding. So it is material. And use data science. At least try. You might find that data science suggests that there's nothing particularly important about a bunch of fields. I'm not purporting to talk about compliance at all in this presentation. Obviously, that's all important to collect. But for the stuff that you think might be able to affect some organisational outcomes, use some data science to qualify it a bit more. So thank you for your time. And if you'd like to follow up, please visit our stand. If you're interested in Predixion, you can actually download a free trial, and it's a cloud-based server, so it's very easy to get going. All right, thank you.